Okay, we are in record mode. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Chrissy Key Rollins here, and I'm here with the amazing Joy Askew. And we have another friend of ours on the line that I'm so excited to bring into the conversation, Miss Jackie Donahue. And she is you'll just see how this all fits together. But we are all here excited to bring to you this next piece of the hero's journey. And this is actually our final session. So our intention today is to do a great little recap overview of how we introduced this journey to you, hit a few highlights of what we have mentioned along the way, and then dive deep, which is why I'm excited that Jackie's here to, just expand the conversation a bit from the one that Joy and I have been bringing to you month after month. But we're going to dive deep into being in this last phase, this final phase of the hero's journey, which is all about mastery and freedom. And to kick off today's recap, we have this great little graphic just to introduce an overview of the hero's journey. And we love this graphic because it does give a fabulous depiction. You ladies can see that on the screen there.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. It gives a fabulous depiction of an overview of the hero's journey. And while Joy and I took this hero's journey and we condensed it a bit to make it more of a four-phase process for you to really condense it down and make it really tangible and bite-sized for you, this shows that complete cycle of stepping out at the top of the circle, as you'll see, stepping out of the ordinary world, our typical day-to-day life experience, and then getting this call to adventure, which is where Joy and I kicked off the conversation as we started to explore what the hero's journey, the different phases of the hero's journey. We started with this call to adventure. And this call to adventure is that nudging, that pulling that you feel from the inside. It can look like, this isn't what my life is supposed to look like, and I'm terribly depressed. It can look like, I have this wild idea that won't leave me alone, and I have to go see what happens. What else can it look like, ladies? I know, Jackie, you weren't on the live conversation, but if you have any thoughts around this call to adventure as we recap the thought.
Well, I would say it was like a repeatingness of like needing to pay attention to what was coming to me. That definitely was the call to adventure until I answered it.
Love that. Love that. And I see that, if you look at step number 3, that refusal of the call, that's probably when it calls again, and when it calls again, and when it calls again.
And it does. It will keep calling until you answer it.
Yes.
Or you refuse, and that's when you really, really bring a lot of misery upon yourself, because you're not answering your literal soul, calling you to your greatness.
And this is definitely a phase of the cycle where you can be stuck in a lot of blame and holding other people responsible for where you're at or the limitations that you're experiencing in your life. But this nudge, this call to adventure, will start to shift you to the next phase, which we introduce you to, of crossing the threshold. But before we cross that threshold, typically we surrender to that calling in some form or fashion, and we start to pursue it. And as we start to pursue it, we inevitably come across a mentor, some guide that is here to help to show the way, to start the process, to give those first steps, to encourage you to go for it. Just somebody else who can share that belief with you and of you, and say, yes, you can make this change, you can go in a new direction. And then you begin to move into that second phase that we covered in the third session. So all these past session videos, you can go back, you can rewatch them. We'll make sure that there's a playlist link wherever you're watching this at. And it's in the third session that we started talking about crossing the threshold. And as we start to cross this threshold, what is the threshold? First of all, what is that proverbial threshold that we're talking about? Is it a literal doorway, or is it more of like an energetic portal? Or for me, it was that proverbial line in the sand. There was just a line in the sand of my life that I drew that I would no longer cross, or that I had to step over, depending on which way that I was looking at it. What comes up for you, ladies, for that crossing the threshold?
For me, I see it was like light. It was almost like a light opening.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like every time that I would make it to the other side, it just felt lighter and almost like, yes, this is right. Like this is just right. And before that, it was all that, like not answering, not responding until I allowed myself. And there was always a mentor, always, every single time since I started this journey. There's been a mentor that shows up right when I need it, and then that light. It's almost like they show the light to me, and then the light comes through me. But it's always been in here, but it just opens up more. I don't really know how else to, but that's the feeling I get, is like more light that brings me lighter in my body, in my energetic field.
Yeah. And I would say that one of my first mentors showed up as light. Like she just kind of had a glow to her, and there was
Yeah.
something very mesmerizing about her. And what I love about this graphic that we still have up on the screen here, you can see this crossing the threshold falls right on the line between the ordinary world and the special world.
Yes.
And I would recognize that threshold being that spot where you can start to see there's two options. Keep doing what you're doing, keep experiencing life as you know it, or take a chance to do something different, because you can physically see that there's another way that somebody is living. And that guide, that mentor, we've been very blessed. And I'm a big believer that if you just take action, a teacher's going to show up, a guide's going to show up, a mentor's going to show up. But even if you just do this in your own personal reflection and you never have this conversation with another being outside of yourself, in your own personal reflections, you can pull up a mental image of someone living a life that is different and appears to be different, and more aligned to the life that you desire to have, but different than the life that you're currently living or how you see or know most people to be living. So this idea of crossing a threshold, this is the first time I can really see a visual in my mind of where I started to look around in my life and say, wait a second, there's two worlds here, the one that I'm living in and the one that other people seem to be playing in. And I want to go find out what it's like to play on the other side.
It's different. And the other thing that shows up is I noticed, like, and I don't do this anymore, but I used to. I would go to different people to like find an answer outside of me, and then there was always like someone that was doing it differently that would give me a different answer, and I'm like, this is it. This is what feels right. This is different. This isn't the same old of how everyone else is doing it. It's different, and I'm going to take this route because this is what I want to try. And that's pretty much what led me to now being able to trust myself more and being able to pinpoint that quicker.
I love that, Jackie, because when Joy and I had a conversation, a couple of months back about crossing the threshold, we identified that once you cross that threshold, that's where you are going to be tested. And that's where you're going to face that transformation. We moved over into like the third phase being the transformation and the treasure. But the transformation happens, and what you find on the other side of that threshold that leads to the transformation, it comes from exactly as this image depicts on the screen: tests, allies, enemies. And and this idea of approaching the innermost cave, like coming into contact with what is happening within you, getting real about what it is that you have been doing. And do you really know if this other way is viable, if you haven't tested it out, if you haven't tried it? And one of the things that I think has been the most pivotal, like in really embracing these concepts for myself, is understanding that in order to get something different, we have to do something different. If you do something different, you're going to get a different outcome. And just 2 nights ago, when I was amidst how should we call this, a communication opportunity with my beloved, I remember I literally said out loud, I don't quite know exactly how to clear this up, but I do know that I'm handling things different than I have before. And I know that I might not have reacted and said all the things the best way that I could or have done everything right. But I do know that I've never handled it this way before. So we're bound to get to a different spot. Let's see what happens. And that in itself is different than continuing to battle for my way or whatever it is, the cycle that I would get stuck in our communication hangups in the past. And that willingness to do something different, it comes from, it's inspired by, it's evoked from, pre-evoked from are the tests that we face and the enemies that we run into. And when I stopped looking at these adversaries on the other side as these rascals that were trying to take me down or stop me, but instead I realized, oh, they are here for my transformation. They are here to unlock the treasure that's within me, instead of me continuing to have my head down and fighting and survival mode the way that I was doing. Now, most of us don't necessarily self-identify as somebody who does that. I didn't self-identify as someone who was fighting my way through life, but I just found that a lot of adversaries along the way. I found a lot of conflict kept coming into my path. And somewhere along the line, I just said, okay, instead of thinking that everybody out there is starting all these fights with me, why don't I start to look at my participation in it? What am I fighting for? What do I need within this moment? What is it that I am refusing to let go of or walk away from? And I started to shift the way that I saw the people who were my adversaries or my enemies. I started to see them as agents for my transformation and my evolution. And it started to unlock a completely different level of awareness within me that is extremely humbling. That brings me to a deep level of surrender. And quite frankly, which is part of the conversation I know we're going to have today around the mastery and freedom, it's confusing because it looks very similar to other situations that we have been fighting to get ourselves out of. But when we can understand, just because it looks like that other situation, it doesn't mean that it is that situation, especially if you are anchored to the truth within that situation. And hopefully that really connects with you out there. And what's coming up for you ladies?
What just was coming up to me was, I was thinking that so often our allies are also our enemies. You know, the ones that we're closest to, the ones that we're most intimate with, you know, our partners, our husbands, our wives, our you know, siblings, our parents, they're the ones that can hurt us the worst, you know, but they're also the ones that love us the most and that we love the most. And there's this like, there's this vortex that we can determine what the energy of that vortex is, like you said, by where we are grounded and rooted. And if we're grounded and rooted in truth, and we're coming from, and truth is absolute. Truth is the absolute realm, which is love. If we're coming from that in every, you know, as much as possible, every, you know, fiber of our being, as much as possible, which at times it might just feel like a thread, you know, but if we're coming from that thread, that is where our healing and growth really, really, really accelerates. It's with those that are both our, you know, the ones that test us the most, you know, that make it, they're the hardest ones to love, to choose love. But when we're able to come from that place of truth, the absolute, which is past causal energy, it's way past subtle energy, and it's infinitely past just the 3D world that we're just looking at and feeling here. It moves mountains. It creates miracles.
I have to completely and totally agree with you, because I've witnessed that in my own life. And I remember there was a point in my life where I could not and did not recognize the mountains being moved in my life. I didn't quite understand exactly what that means. And now I witness it firsthand. The mountain that blocks the connection between my husband and I when we're miscommunicating, when we're caught up in our wounds, when we are victimizing ourselves unknowingly within ourselves, when we are fighting so hard for our rightness and our perspective. That mountain that blocks, it's like dropping a mountain between your cell phone and the cell phone tower. You're not going to get a good signal. You're not going to get a good signal. But when you can, instead of freaking out or getting pissed off or yelling at the mountain or blaming yourself or victimizing yourself in the situation, when you can just recognize, wait a second, I have crossed this threshold. I am no longer in the ordinary world. I am now committed to this extraordinary life in this special world, as the graphic says. You know, I'm committed to this hero's journey. I'm the hero in this story. I am not the one who is defeated. I am the one that triumphs. So when this mountain is placed before me, instead of getting upset at this invisible thing that I can't see that's stopping and creating this, you know, this interference, I can instead remember it is an illusion for me to work beyond. It is something for me to overcome. And when I grab my sword, when I pick up my sword, not to battle, but grab that sword of truth, not to fight, but to set free yourself from the chains that stop you from having a hero experience within that moment, mountain or not, watch that mountain go. Because it will go. It will move. When you surrender, when you let it go, when you stop fighting, when you stop victimizing, when you stop blaming, when you just come back to the knowingness that this is something different and you will not be denied. That's like my favorite expression. I've embraced it for like the last 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, almost nonstop. I will not be denied. I haven't yet. It's just, I won't be denied. When you can anchor into that, when you can stand in that truth, watch that seemingly unmovable mountain go. That other person will fight their way. They will not give up their position. They will continue to do what they have always done because that's their job until you change the way you are showing up in this situation, or suppose, experiment with, see what happens. What if you change your story from victim to hero? You start to shift the way that you interact back with this ordinary world, right? You're the one who crossed the threshold, not them. You did. You did. Now they are in your path to show you how to evolve because you crossed the threshold is what you signed up for. So it is not for you to grab them and yank them into your world to say, I am right, stand over here with me. It is for you to test out your truth within their world. So you can see this upswing on the graphic where we have this road back, this resurrection, and we return with the elixir, not to douse everybody else, but to drink it for ourselves, to heal and clear and ground ourselves, to return to our own truth. And from that place, we may invite them over and they may be willing to come. But they're never going to be willing to come when you're forcing them to come over to your side. You have to let your side go, be willing to step into theirs, knowing that yours will not be taken away. It will not be swept under the rug. You are now living in a world of paradox, where no one thing can exist without both things existing. So if you separate yourself and you dissect yourself and you cut it down to just one thing, you're going to have that ordinary world experience. But in the special world, beyond the threshold, in the hero's journey, the hero knows everything is both things at one time. And that's the mastery that takes place. And that's the freedom that's found on the other side of it. You're no longer bound by the limitations of only having one option, one truth, me or them. One of us has got to survive. Let's see who wins. It's no longer that game. You now play a different game where you can step into this multidimensional experience. You can revel in your truth, their truth at the same time, not negating either of you, and fully recognizing and honoring and embracing both of you. And from that point, you can liberate everything that's not true with a capital T, and get to the ultimate truth of the situation. And that to me is like really just exciting and something that I reach for as often as possible. As often as possible. I'm going to take this graphic down so we can just open up the conversation for the rest of the time. So awesome.
Perfect. And like what's coming back to me is the conscious choice of choosing, like while they're both present, it's choosing one that aligns more with truth than the other, but allowing that other choice to still be there and leaving free will for either side. So that's actually like what came up for me. So last night we had a similar situation with communication, and he felt a certain way that I was coming off, and instead of trying to show him my rightness, and he was acting the same character, it didn't change, same thing, continuing the play by play that he usually does when we get caught in this pattern. And I said to him, I said, I will be more mindful of how I come across for you. So I was showing him that he's right, and I'm willing to surrender to that so I could be a better partner to him. And I felt like another part of it was like, if you don't want to continue this journey with alongside of me and create greatness with me, there's another way to go, and it's up to you, but I'm willing to commit to this for both of us.
I love all that, Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave him that choice because I don't want him feeling like there's only one way and it's my way to do this, or I'm going to do this. It's not about that. It's about that free will, that he has that choice to decide what's best for him, and I will be there no matter what.
I love it. I love it. And you have to commit to utilizing your superpower, which is the power of conscious choice. Only you can make this choice. They are not going to set up the circumstances for you to decide your character and your integrity easily. See, right now we love, and we have a society that is set up, and we have social media to cater to it with all these algorithms that are just placating to all of our preferences. We are getting isolated into this world of just what feels good and how I see the world. And it's stopping us from seeing how we're just cutting ourselves off from so many more options when we narrow it down to just what feels good to us in the moment. And when we can realize that some of what doesn't feel good is because it needs to go from us. It is actually causing our suffering. It is not for us to just surround ourselves with all the comforts. It's to look at what is coming up and getting really honest with it in a totally different way, and making the conscious choice to give up the fight and to honor the one that's in front of you. And for me, I committed to who's the character that I'm going to be. Who's the character that Chrissy's going to play? What best represents what's on my heart? Does fighting for my way best represent my intention in the moment? Does being mad, frustrated, is doing anything other than walking over and loving and hugging and recognizing the person in front of me, is any other move representative of the intention that I want to bring to the world? Not really. Anything else is me doing what I feel like I need to do to be heard, to be seen, to be recognized, to survive the moment. That's it.
Yep.
And when I realized that, wow, I am not allowing myself a peaceful experience every single time that I go back and say, but you're still not hearing what I said. Who cares? Who cares who heard what or what it sounded like or anything? None of that matters. None of that is worth shortchanging my character representation to get to. And that's why I had to ask myself just the other night, what am I fighting for? What is it that I want? And I realized I just want to be right. Well, if I know that I'm right, then shut the fuck up.
Right.
Just be quiet. Because who are you trying to be right for?
Exactly.
For me, because this is my story, my life, my character. And if you have questions, I'm happy to engage in further explanation, but I'm not getting questions. I'm getting a battle between the rightness. And I think that if you take time to reflect the next conflict that you run into with another person, take time to reflect. Yes, you are probably right. And that other person is probably wrong. They are probably wrong. And you are probably right. We know this. We're affirming this for you. So in that moment, recognize you're right. They may be wrong, but are you having the experience that you want?
No.
Are you being the character representation inside and out of what you want to embody and experience in this life? And if not, who are you holding responsible? Who are you blaming for it? and recognize that they are not responsible for coming over and liberating you. Only you are. It's your job. Now, this does not negate true, threatening, harmful, physical, harmful situations. Though for most of us, we're not in true physical harm, though we feel physically harmed on the inside because of the harshness that we experience on the outside. But just watch when you find yourself in that round to round, when you find yourself banging your head against the wall, when it's here you go again. Now, Mercury just went back on course today, so hopefully we'll have a little bit less of that. But think back to the past conversations that you've had over the past couple of weeks. There's probably been some head banging on the wall and some frustrations and some, are we really going over this again? Are we really having this fight again? Is this really going around and round again? In those moments, start to see. When I started to look, and I started to loosen up my grip, when I started to not make it about making sure that that character is happy and satisfied and fully understanding me, but instead I'm happy and satisfied and fully understanding me and representing my character the way that I want to, I don't know, something shifted for me. What do you think, Enjoy? You've been quiet for a bit. I know we've been going on.
I'm thinking about, like, you're talking about free will, Jackie and Chrissy, and I was thinking about how in this mastery stage, what I'm finding is that really the more I align my will, basically, the more that I surrender my free will to the divine, to God, to love, and align with that. You know, in the Bible, Jesus says, not my will, but thy will. The actual more freedom and power and just awesomeness I experience in my life. And I was thinking about, because divine will is basically truth. And again, if we come from that place, just by our desire and our intention and our commitment to being rooted in and coming from that place of truth, absolute truth, in everything that we think and do. It's like you and I were talking, Chrissy. We don't have to get caught up in the details. I was thinking about, because there's so much going on now in our country and in the world, and there's so many different opinions and theories and conspiracies, and like, you don't really know who to believe, and who's right and who's wrong, and which side should I be on, and what should I worry about, like, what's really important. But when you align yourself with God's will, with love's will, which is truth, you live in this faith, this knowing that everything that comes up is there for your benefit, no matter what it looks like. And talk about freedom. I mean, when you walk in this world, going around with that, knowing that attitude, everything is for my benefit. Everything is a gift. everything is to propel me towards my greatest self, and that everything is in order. There is such a freedom in that. It really is. And I know there's so many people that, and this is, why I used to really not like religion, is because, they say it's like a panacea. It's just something to make you feel better. About how really sucky this world is and can be. It's just, like a trick of the mind so that you won't suffer, mentally and emotionally through this life. That's what I basically used to really have a very high suspicion that was what religion was. And what I did not truly know, you can know something intellectually. Like I knew, Christianity pretty well intellectually, but I did not know it experientially. I had never experienced that complete peace that being aligned with absolute truth brings, because everything is in order. That the universe has your back. And you walk out into this world expecting miracles, and they happen. And I think that when we can do that, walking in two worlds, to be in this world but not of it, as Jesus was. And I'm not saying I'm up there with Jesus, but I'm, like I am, I don't know, maybe I am. Who's to say, All I know is that this is the life I always wanted. I wanted life to be magical. I wanted life to be peaceful. I wanted life to be not ugly and disappointing and sad and frustrating and all, just I could go on and on and on. And this alignment with truth, absolute truth, which I believe is the ultimate elixir, right? The ultimate boon that we ingest and then, present ourselves to the world, all the babies.
Baby, he got locked out.
Oh.
Go ahead, sweetheart.
I believe that is really what all of us are desiring. That is the thing that not only fills us up and satisfies us, but overflows and gets onto the world and into the world around us. And that is how we bring heaven to earth, so to speak, although it's already here. Just have to have the eyes of truth to see it.
Well, you mentioned Jesus, so I think we might as well open that discussion as well. I think the whole powerful part of Jesus' message is everything that I did, you can do, and more. So I believe what I'm hearing you say is that this is just committing to living the principles that Jesus didn't just talk about, but embodied and lived. How can you walk amongst those that society and others have deemed as less than, not good, low energy, low vibe, not woke, unconscious, sleeping, how can you walk amongst those with all of their shortcomings, with all of their thoughtlessness, with all of their lack of consideration, with all of their narcissism, with all of their flamboyant outlandishness that pushes the boundaries of what society says is acceptable or not acceptable, or how we should be or how we should not be? How can you walk amongst challenging characters and not lose sight of the God within yourself, within others, and not fall into the temptations to become one of them, to meet their assault with an assault, be it verbal or otherwise, to meet their slander with slander, to meet their nasty unkindness with nasty unkindness, to meet their battling for righteousness with battling for righteousness? When we can not do those things that everybody else in the world is doing, we stop having the experience that everybody else in the world is having, and we begin to tap into the possibility and the potentiality and the actuality of experiencing heaven on earth, just as Jesus spoke. And it is not about creating the perfect experience. Like, this is how you have heaven on earth. You hire the right caterer, you make sure you get the right party planner, you find somebody who can do the animal balloons. Like, that's not how you create heaven on earth. It's an experience that happens from the inside, no matter what is happening on the outside. And that's what allowed Jesus to say, hey, we're going to have dinner tonight, 6 o'clock, my house. If you're interested, come. And those that are like, well, screw eating dinner, we don't like eating dinner, he'll be like, okay, cool. So 6 o'clock, it'll be on the table. You know, that's unwavering. That is not losing sight. You don't have to convince other people of anything when you know who you are, when you know that you are backed by this universal presence, by this divine energy, by whatever it is that's making all of it happen. Or if you can dare to be bold enough, brave enough, courageous enough, a hero enough in your own life to step through that invisible threshold and live life as if life does have your back. Because in order for life to have your back, there has to be circumstances of which you need alleviation. But you can't get alleviation in the way that you've been doing things, or else you would have already gotten it. You're going to keep getting what you've been getting, because what you need to be alleviated from is not these rascals and circumstances. Although I really wish sometimes that that's all it was, so that I could just be me and be right and stuck in my ways and not have to change and evolve and feel enlightened when the circumstances are just right. And instead, we can have a completely different experience. We can evolve the situation. We can step out of what things appear like, and we can reconnect to that truth. We can allow life to catch us, but we have to get out of the way in order for it to do that. And getting out of the way means stop doing what you're doing that's causing you to bang your head against the wall. Even if it's the other person's fault and the other person that's doing it and the other person who keeps causing it. If it's them, let it be them. Withdraw and lay down your swords and weapons and just see what happens. And I recommend start speaking truth into the situation. This really helps. If nothing else, it just quite frankly confuses the other person. And you might get some accusations of being nutty or being fake. I've gotten all that. And that's okay, because I understand it may come across fake as I'm learning how to be more truthful to myself. When I've lied and I've protected and I've been in this survival mode, and by lied, I mean withholding of the truth of how I feel, withholding of the truth of what I want to say, withholding in any way. That's lying. That's what I mean by that. What was I saying about it? Instead of staying in that spot, I don't know what I was going to say. I started to judge my own lies and explain them. And then I fell right out of my thought. See how that happens? See how those two worlds, they are so close to one another, and you can be in one in all of your truth. Reconnect to your truth in that moment. Step out of the lies that you're telling yourself about this other person to keep your stories intact. What you're telling yourself about this other person is what your ego believes it needs to have as a truth in order to continue to perpetuate your limited life experience that you've been having. They need that character to be by that definition. The most radical thing that you can do for yourself is to redefine that character. Redefine that character and watch how the story starts to change. Align that character to a deeper truth. Connect to the truth that you know beyond the moment, beyond the experience, beyond the feelings, beyond the appearance. Connect back to that truth. Start to speak it into the situation. And even if it's internally, and watch what starts to happen. Watch what starts to happen. If you haven't done it, you can't tell me that isn't going to work. You can tell me why you think it's not going to work. But I'm telling you, what you are fighting is letting go of your rightness about this story that you're telling yourself about this other person, which is a fantasy that you made up to keep your stories of your own limitations in place. You evolve that character in your story, your main character will evolve as well.
Mm-hmm.
You evolve your main character, the main character's life circumstances evolve as well.
And I want to add on to that, like a lot that's coming up for me is releasing control around your experience and what's happening, and get out of your own way. Just allow it to, like, observe it, see what's happening, release that control that it has to go in a certain way. Because I think we try to hold on to that and try to, like, well, this is how I'm going to make this happen, instead of just letting go and watching it unfold and showing up in your truth more. And that's, for me, what works is I see my highest self, being my best self as best I can in that moment. And if I can't, stepping away from it until I can. And then also seeing the other character as their highest self, as their best self. And that allows me to get away from that story that, you know, of all of those things I want to say to them. It allows me to get away from that. And then, like you're saying, I've been called fake multiple times because obviously there's another side of me that wants to say something. So yes, it does show up as fake as time, but I don't want to connect with that. I want to connect with the truth. So yes, maybe it does show up as fake because I am not going with that frequency that they're trying to go with. Instead, I'm going higher than that. And I guess it does show up as fake, because I'm not allowing myself to be in the middle of it.
You just started telling a new story to a character that you've been telling the same story to for a long time. So they aren't going to just be trusting of it.
Yeah,
They're not going to just take it. They are going to actually make sure that you're committed to that story. Yep. And they're going to do that by challenging it. Look at that circle again on that graphic, and you'll see that as soon as you come back to the ordinary world again, you're going to have the opportunity to step across that threshold again, to face those adversaries again, to reconnect to that sort of truth, to cut yourself free, and to bring that back into the world. Again, you're not here to pull them into your world. You're here to get yourself into the reality that is the most aligned to the truth that's within you. And Jackie, you hit the nail on the head. I'd already written down in my notes too. You have to stop needing it to be different. And this is the question for any of you that self-identify as someone who's more conscious, more aware, more spiritually developed, more whatever we like to call ourselves as. Challenge yourself to stop needing it to be any different, and ask yourself, why? Why do I need this person to change in order for me to be at peace? Why do I need my circumstances to be different for me to be fulfilled? If I know everything that has got me to this point of evolution and conscious awareness, why do I need anything to be different in my life? Why? Because as soon as I say this needs to change, I'm right, they're wrong, they're toxic, I'm high vibe. As soon as we do that, we create a separation and we create a need. And once we can let go of that need or identify, when I realize why do I need someone to say, Chrissy, you're so right. Why do I need someone to say that in order for me to create a peaceful environment and circumstances within myself? Why do I need it? And I am just enough of a control freak to harness that and look to control my need for controlling, right? I look to monitor how I'm holding tightly and where I can let go, instead of where can I control this other character or get them to let go or get them to see so they can finally release. It's really the next level of evolution that I think all of us are being asked for, but those of us that are on this conscious spiritual growth path, I think is absolutely necessary for us. And as Joy and I, and Jackie too now has brought her into the fold and say, walk this way, try this out in your life because it's making magic in our life. You know, Jackie had that perfect level of awareness and willingness. And as she said, she seeked out all these different answers. And if the answers are, put them to the side, clear your environment, reground yourself, and keep them out so you can stay grounded and you're ready for something more, this is it, baby. This is at least worth the exploration, because this unlocks everything that we have been carrying around with us and fighting for and saying and integrating into our lives. This is what, to me, has unlocked that next level experience to where it becomes malleable, transmutable, changeable, pliable, and I can just mold it into whatever it is that I would like for it to be. Now, that doesn't mean, again, I get to pick all the decorations and all the scenery and all the characters' roles and how they show up. I don't get to do that part. But it's creating the world within myself and within my realm that is aligned with the life that I want to experience. And as I create that, I care less about what that looks like, and the more it gets in alignment with what I want it to.
Yes, I was just about to say that, because then they show up differently. So even like after that happened, like Thomas just asked me if he needed to stop home to do anything for me. If I handled that differently, it wouldn't have went that way. So by me releasing control around that, even this kid, it's allowed me to like open up another avenue of love between me and him that I wasn't expecting at all.
I love it.
Yeah. So I definitely think this is each time there's a miracle and a breakthrough each time, and I feel like that's allowed me to continue this path. It's just allowed it to keep going, and I wouldn't do it any differently unless it's not working. But it hasn't shown up that way. It hasn't. Each time I get more aligned with love, I continue to get closer to the truth, and I continue to stay aligned.
And here, to finish up, speaking of, you know, alignment with the truth, one of the absolute truths is that there is a divine compassion for humanity, that if we can tap into that and live in our world, in our own little individual worlds within this big world, with that, staying connected to that divine compassion for humanity, for all of us, for ourselves, for each other, and understand that life is not meant to be easy, you know. Life's not meant to be comfortable. Life's not meant to always be joyful, always be blissful, because if it were, we wouldn't grow and we wouldn't be challenged to choose love time and time and time again, which actually grows love and makes it more powerful. Then, you know, and if we didn't have that, then what would be the purpose of being here? You know, you think about it. What would be the purpose? I don't know. I don't know that there would be one, right? So in the ultimate overall picture, really, it really is all about compassion for the human experience and forgiveness. And I find it helps really to keep in mind when I am challenged by others. when my compassion actually is challenged, to remember how each time that I come to a new awareness about my own behavior, how humbled I am, and how repentant I am. Because when you come to an awareness, it's the awareness. And I have such a compassion for other people when I see them not aligned with truth. And my heart really breaks for them, because I know how painful it is, or can be, to come to truth about ourselves. And that really keeps me returning, to my intention to always be grounded in truth, in love, to remember how painful these coming to awarenesses about ourselves can be, and that up until the time we do, we are really unconscious of them and totally unaware of them, and thus innocent, right? God always holds us as innocents until we do have these awarenesses, true awarenesses. And so we should also, give that gift to other people. And it really does make life so much easier. It really does. So those are just my last thoughts.
I'm totally with you on the humbleness when I catch myself in those moments, because I'm so used to justifying. We are all so used to justifying, and I certainly witnessed my partner used to justifying a lack of integrity, a default or a abandonment of our character due to justifications of stories that are running through our mind as to why it's okay to raise our voice or be unkind or to be harmful or inflictive in any way. I catch myself with my daughter. I catch myself with my husband. I catch myself with my dog.
Mm-hmm.
I catch myself with strangers on the street. I catch myself with a lot of things that it just comes up, this abandonment of this remarkable character,
Mm-hmm.
because they were unthoughtful. They were inconsiderate. They cut me off first. They raised their voice. They didn't think. They don't see all the things that I do. They don't, whatever it is. And it is humbling. It is next level healing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And when you step into this space, I have found I have to be so committed to being here, because I really thought, I might be a little naive, but I really thought stepping into this world that there were safe places to be where I wouldn't have to, where like I could just relax and other people would never question what I'm bringing to the table, especially if they could step into the world with me and knew what I was talking about. I could see the way that I moved and did things, and they could relate to it and understand it. I thought for sure, okay, so this is a completely safe person that I can 100% relax with, be totally vulnerable and, messy, sloppy in front of, and just trust that I'll be fully received. And even amongst this world, that is not the case, because as you are willing to face the fears that come up in you, and you're willing to give voice, and you're willing to navigate your relationships differently, and you're willing to bring different communication over to the table, not every character on the other side is going to just accept, embrace, and make it easy for you. They are still going to challenge you. They're going to question your character. And what it has done for me is helped me to see where it is that I have conscious attachments or expectations. Like, I still think that this particular form of character means this, so I can do this with my character. And it's still showing me the different ways that I am holding limitations and judgments and prejudgments and expectations and what have you. So I share this to say that it is a challenging time in our society. It's a challenging time amongst our relationships. And stepping into this world, into this way of being, really embracing your hero's journey and testing out some of the things that we're bringing to the table for you. It will allow for liberations, miracles, a freedom like you've never known before. And with it, it will bring the most challenging situations, the most heartbreaking moments, the most devastating things. But if you notice, that's going to happen in your world anyway. So for me, this has helped me to heal from those devastations, to rise up again from those backlashes, to just fortify myself in a way that just never would have happened if that other person hadn't let me down, to expose to me an expectation that I was holding, an opportunity to be more authentic, to be more compassionate, to be more understanding. And when I started to notice that, like, I expect rudeness to come from a certain generation or a certain type of people, but I don't expect it to happen within another community of people. What I'm doing is projecting my own images again. I'm forgetting the humanity that is within every single person. You know, that kept me separated from religious beliefs and Christianity a lot, because I was raised in the South where you're saturated with Christianity and it's represented not as much as it is talked about. And I confused people who represented the Christian faith as being characters that should not make mistakes and are not human. And when I realized, oh, they're all just human, doing the best they can, aiming for this mark and missing a lot, then I could understand and I could forgive and I could bring that compassion and I could let it go. And I had to do the same thing within the healing community, within the light working community, within the spiritual and more conscious aware community. We are all humans. Humans. We hurt. We've been overlooked. We've been stepped over. We've been denied. We've been not heard. We've had to fight to be heard. We've had to fight to be seen. And some of us only know fighting in order to have that recognition and to know that they're okay and that they're surviving. So all of us have this. And what I have found to be the consistent ground leveler, the level playing field that gets us all back to the same starting point where we can build a new story that's built on truth and faith and alignment, is that we're all human and we all are doing the very best that we can. And if it hurts you to have it done to you, it hurts others when you do it to them. Even if you're doing it in the name of your self-care or your self-healing or your evolution or your high vibe protection, you have an impact on others and others are impacted on you. And when you can realize that, you will walk, or as I've realized that, I have begun to walk more gently with others, with myself, with my internal self, with my external self. And that gentleness, I think, is the very thing that Jesus embodied, talked about, the compassion, the love, unfallible, unwavering, standing on this invisible structure that kept everybody on that level playing field. And that's what I'm striving for, to take the people that I have off on the pedestal down, to take the people that I have down below the surface up, and to realize there's a common connection here. And if I can connect to that and I can be consistent with it, maybe I'll have a more consistent experience of other people too. I don't know. But the more consistent I am with this, the more consistent life gives me that. But it still also gives me all the other stuff too, because as you heal, you're just ready to shed more and shed more. I know that in that process, I've become more sensitive to other people's harm, more sensitive to their misalignments, more sensitive to my own, and also at the same time, more fortified against them. So I pick up on them more subtly, but they affect me less because I get less tangled up less self-identified, less entrained in that frequency and that vibe of it. I can break out of that energy and just have a different frequency that's happening. And so be aware that that's definitely part of the hero's journey too. You'll become more sensitive, as in more aware, but also more fortified. And the other thing that I ran into that I feel that I wanted to share in today's session is that for me, and I think for women and for those that are just undervoiced in our society in general, which I could argue could be for our men as well. There's definitely aspects that are way undervoiced in our society for men. But for those of us that are so used to fighting for our voice and giving things a voice and using our voice, I have found that a big part of my voice healing has also been allowing others to have a voice, and not just have a voice, but have a voice in however they express it, however they bring it unfiltered to the table, however it is, because the sloppier it is, the messier it is, more likely, the more genuine it is to how they're feeling in the moment, and the more truthful it is. And the less that I have to change their voice in order for me to have my settledness, the more that I realize through hearing others, that's the key to me ultimately being heard in return, and not just me fighting to be heard and fighting to be heard. And sometimes it gets tricky to me as a woman, as a mom. It gets tricky to me because it looks like, but I need to give voice to this because somebody needs to say it and it needs to be seen. But every time that I'm hitting up against that, I realize it's a moment in which it's not meant to be presented. It's not meant to be seen. Now is not the environment to cultivate the awareness and the ability to receive it. This is me needing that to be seen to alleviate something in me. And when I can settle into what's coming up inside of me and allow the moment to pass and allow the energy to shift and then bring a voice to the table, it's more likely to be heard, it's more likely to be received, and it's more likely to have space once the space is cleared with what the other person is dumping into the scene. So that was the last thing in my notes that I wanted to give a voice to. Give a voice and allow a voice to be given as well. And if you want freedom, unfiltered expression, you just knowing that you're awesome and amazing regardless of your choices, and for people to give you the benefit of the doubt and to give you leeway to be out of integrity sometimes, you might consider doing that for other people too. Mm-hmm. That's what I've had to learn. I hold other people to this level of expectation, and then I let myself out of my own integrity because I've got the justifications happening within me. So if I think maybe they have the justifications within them, and instead of fighting those, just recognize that that's what's happening and not take it personal, opens more choices.
I noticed, like, when I stopped taking those things personal, when they're just releasing is what's happening, and I just held that space and didn't take it as anything to do with me, but more to do with them. I didn't need to be heard. I would allow it to just happen, and I would be like, okay, if I needed to be heard right now, it would be happening. So exactly like you're saying, like, I released control around that and allowed it to just show up the way it was supposed to, and got out of the way of the whole experience that's happening, got myself out of the way and listened more. And I feel like when I allowed myself to listen more than trying to be heard and say, like, this is the way, it allowed it to show up more naturally and just more magical in a sense, because it showed up the way it was supposed to. And my ego got out of the way around it. And I didn't, and then most of the time, any of those things that I thought needed to come up didn't need to, and it would come up in a better way when it did. So it's kids just all over the place. And then there was something else that I wanted to say, but I don't remember what it was. It it didn't need to be said. So, but yeah, I agree with all of this, and I think that for me, it's just allowing life to just I just show up. When I just show up and I release that control and I stop trying to control it all around me, it tends to just show up for me, and I'm opening myself up to receive those experiences so I can grow. Yeah. It's all for our healing. And the more that I connect with my relationship with God, that is where I think I'm able to show up as a stronger person and be more connected as Jesus would. And I follow that path.
I love that, Jackie. And what that's sparking in me is a message again out to the other light healers, workers, light workers, energy healers that are out there, that are the ones that are on this on this path more consciously, that are taking on this spiritual development and this spiritual growth role and healing process for ourselves and for the world. I think what Jackie just said is something that we all need to really take to heart. We can get so caught up in our purpose being liberating others, helping others. I see this person suffering. Let me help them. Let me help them. Let me help them. But our purpose truly only ever is to show up and be you. That's it. So if you want to save the world, if you want to help others, if you want to stop others' pain, suffering, hurting, anger, whatever it is, the best way to do that, and really the only truly authentic way to do that, is to just be you and to just be willing to show up and connect back to who you are and ask yourself, how am I being? What choices am I making? Instead of going into this default way of being, and allow your purpose to not be to rescue this other person, not to make sure that they know the truth, not to fight to have your way, but your purpose to just be you, showing up in that moment, connected to these deeper truths, and see what happens from there. We get so caught up in our self-identity and being purposeful and knowing that we're making a difference when we can alleviate somebody else's suffering. But it is so powerful and it is so necessary, and nobody else is going to freaking do it for us. We must alleviate our own suffering. And it is not by getting these characters to act right. It is by understanding what these characters are inviting for us to engage with within, and being willing and daring and bold and brave enough to have an honest conversation that may look like, I don't even know what to say. But be willing to start the conversation, because it's language that is stopping us. It's these words that we choose, that we fight for, that mean something to us. And when we can step back from the language, when we can step back from the mannerisms, when we can step back from the tone of voice, and we can just have this heart to heart, human to human, compassionate moment in connection, everything else will take care of itself. The world will heal itself if we do that. Because in those moments, we are healing ourselves, we are healing the world, we're allowing healing in another person. And when we shut down our communication, when we don't say, hey, I know that this is uncomfortable and I'm really scared what's going to happen next, and just be willing to take a look at it, then we don't have the opportunity for anything different to come forward, ever. Any final thoughts, Joy, before we call this amazing series to a close?
No, just, I think it's really helpful to create and adopt and use a mantra that helps you stay in this, this new level of consciousness and intention. And I would suggest a really good one that's really powerful is love first. To, be the one. And that's really, think about it. If you love first, you're the first one in any situation, but also in any situation, you choose love over anything else first, but you be the first one to do it too. That's doubly powerful, right?
I'm going to write down that moment that you realize that the jerk that you're fighting is yourself. That's what came to my mind.
Love first.
Love first. That's very, very, very simple. Not always our first thing that pops to mind, but just grab onto that and set it down. It's identical to what happened to me just 36 hours ago, in which I said, wait a second, what am I most committed to? Being right now in this moment, or being loving, compassionate, no matter what?
Mm-hmm.
Love first.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I always reflect over now. That, and I notice that when I do reflect over that, that's when I make that right choice that is for the highest good of both of us or whoever's in that situation. Love is always for the highest good of everyone.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it gives you, if you if you really are devoted to it and you set this intention to love first, it gives you that buffer zone between stimulus and response. It gives you that moment of reflection, gives you that opportunity to choose how you're going to react. It's magical. It really is. It really is.
I love it, love it, love it. And that's how it's supposed to be. The gift that keeps on giving, this infinite unfolding. There, you can't outgive God. We really cannot have these things be anything more than a concept and something that we gather around and talk about until we take them back into our lives, until we're willing to put them to the test right here, right now, in front of us, whenever we're facing the opportunity to continue this ordinary world, continue your ordinary ways, or dare to do something different to get a different outcome or result. And we are here to support your journey. I have an offering right now available, an empathic healers course, which will take you really in depth to understanding how to use your entire body, mind, and spirit as a healing tool, not only for yourself, but also for others, how to utilize other modalities to enhance your own abilities, how to tap into your own abilities, and how to make your day-to-day, moment-to-moment life experience a more sacred and fulfilling one. So if that's something that is of interest to you, definitely reach out to me. And I also have some other things that will be on deck over the next couple of weeks to offer support, and always open to have a one-on-one conversation. I know that Joy also is open to connecting with you one-on-one and having a further conversation. She has an amazing workshop that is coming up, as well as other amazing healing gifts that she's just totally worth connecting with, believe me on that. And then Jackie also is a really powerful healer, does a lot of sacred channeled meditation, healing, Reiki, energy work, as well as making some amazing organic personal care and makeup products. So connect with us if you would like any more support, if anything that one of us has said that's like, wow, that's exactly what I was thinking or feeling, I'd love to talk to her further. Just know we are open. We are here to walk this walk day in, day out for ourselves first and foremost, because we know that's the only way to really do it for any of you. But we are here as mentors, as guides, as people that are living this, breathing this, walking it day in, day out. Even if what you want to bring to the table is something that you think will challenge what we're talking about, we are open. We're here for support. We're here for continued conversation. I speak for all of us. I know it because I can see your faces and I see you smiling. So I know you're agreeing with me, but we truly honor you for making it through this replay. If you're watching it in replay, obviously, and if you made it through the rest of the series, go back, rewatch them, share them, start conversations around them. And if you want to keep this conversation going, it's one that we're having anyway. So reach out to us. We're happy to do it. And if you like us having it out loud, I'm sure we can be talked into that too. So just let us know. We'd love to connect. We'd love to support you. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments below, or you can reach out to us individually, one-on-one. And any final thoughts, ladies?
No, just Christiana, thank you for being on board with my vision for this series, and for supporting it with your wisdom and time and just everything that you have put into it. It's been such a gift. And Jackie, I'm so glad you could join us today. It feels like the circle's complete.
Yes, I'm so thankful to be here. I love both of you, and I feel like you've definitely just strengthened what's happening here for me. So just connect stronger with love, and I can go to you too and really know that I'm on the right path, and I can help everybody else with the support of you as well. So it's amazing.
Yeah, and we're in the trenches with you. So I think today's light workers, healers, and energy workers, it's really important that we share our struggles and we share what we're going through, and that we share it from an empowered perspective and not one that continues our victimizing stories. I think it's the next level of liberation and healing for ourselves and for humanity as a whole. And I honor you ladies for bringing the conversation as well. And I look forward to the next one. All right. Have a wonderful day.
Yes.
Bye, ladies.